You are under spells, people. You're under spell. I ain't under no spell. You are. You're under a spell.
Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, you're welcome to Building the Verse. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real MVP. Alright lovelies, let's dive into today's video.
Diaspora wards remind me of a sickness. And when you get sick, you might have a bunch of symptoms like a fever, a sore throat, body chill. And whenever I see people engaged in these diaspora one-ups, no, you did this, no, you said that, no, y'all got this, no, y'all took that. It's like focusing on one symptom of the sickness. Like you focus so much so on the cough that you forget that you have a fever and body chill. So you do everything to stifle the cough. And when you finally stop the cough, i.e. get your little one-up, you realize you still have a temperature through the roof, you still have the body chills, but by then you didn't actually assess the sickness. So you go back to this cycle in which you have to go back to the doctor, a reality check. And the doctor says, the reality check, that yeah, you may have figured out how to cure your little cough, but these other symptoms was to a bigger sickness. You got cancer. And because you were so fixated on the one little symptom of a cough, your cancer has spread. That cancer for us in the diaspora is racism and white supremacy. And versus fighting for a cure, y'all looking for cough drops.
Coming from someone that lives in a house that he could lose any time due to harsh weather conditions, like small rain and you could lose your house. As an African living in Africa, I don't even have the energy to start explaining mud huts and not to you. But the only question I want to ask you is, in your house that you live in, do you own the piece of land in it? Because the Africans who live in mud huts over here actually do own their piece of land. It belongs to them and they can do whatever they want with it. Instead of you to be judging mud huts as something backwards, you should be asking yourself how the African ancestors came up with amazing techniques to build a house with mud and it can't be swept off by rain. You should be asking yourself how the African architecture is amazing instead of judging mud huts and making it look as if it's something bad. And by the way, whenever you guys do it, whenever your people do it and start building houses with mud, it's called sustainable. But when it's done by an African, it's called backwards. Ugh. Yeah.
It's giving very much, you remind me of all the things I've been taught to hate about myself, and so now I hate you. It's very much projecting self-hate, internalized anti-blackness, internalized anti-Africanness, internalized anti-black Americanness. It's that internalized self-hate projected out onto people who look just like you. I have some people in my comments talking about how, oh, we love this Black Scots. They look just like us Black Americans. Like, you know, we look just the same. We don't look like the rest of those people. And it's like, are you okay, bitch? You think Black Scottish people, who are also many of them first generation, second generation, or just straight up immigrants themselves from Africa and the Caribbean, and you think that they look like you, but not the other. White supremacy is a hell of a drug, and it is wild how we are sitting here arguing with ourselves about who is more of the white supremacist stereotype than the other.
All right, so you don't want us teaching truth over here. You want to have your little African, booty scratching stuff, tie you all the way up into our European history on our continent and Asia and all of these other places we built before these people even came. This is absolute lies. I'm gonna tell you something. You Africans need to stop speaking on us Aborigines who were deported off of our lands in the British Isles. Stop speaking for our people. You fake wannabe British Islanders and you fake wannabe Germans from that mud hut continent.
So I'm really getting tired of hearing the black community slander the white people for everything. What happened to us taking accountability of our community? Do you understand that we have black on black crime? We have all these issues. Single mothers having children out of wedlock. Are you serious? We have all of these things going on in the black community. But you're crying that white people are doing this, white people are doing that.
To all the people who tagged me in that man's post. I talked about this before on my page. Discernment, folks. Discernment. Who would have thought that the man calling Africa a mud hut continent, the grown-ass man, not a child, using African booty scratcher in 2025. Who would have thunk that someone with such anti-African sentiments might also have anti-black sentiments as well? Who would have made that connection? Some of y'all are out here following this man like he's the second coming of foundational black Scottish Christ. And I'm not even gonna get into the accent change. If this isn't proof that motherfuckers are really out here intentionally trying to divide us, wake up, folks. Black people, let's end the diaspora wars today. These diaspora wars are so fucking tired. So let's end them right now. Welcome to the Diaspora Peace Talks, a place where all of the blacks of the diaspora who are not xenophobic can come and enjoy each other's presence. Because the fuel that is stoking the diaspora wars fire is 100% stoked by the xenophobic losers amongst us on all sides. Oh, and let me add for my semantics police who are gonna come into the comments to correct what I've said. Let me add the continent as well, because technically the African continent isn't part of the diaspora, blah, blah, blah. There are so many of us black folks from all parts of the diaspora and the continent who love other black people. We love black people. So those of us who are rooting for everybody black, we don't want to hear no talks about tethers. We don't want to hear no talks about the American education system. We don't want to hear no talks about akadas. We don't want to hear no talks about destiny swapping. We just trying to vibe with our niggas. I came for the niggas. So if you're a black person on this planet who doesn't subscribe to the diaspora wars, who understands that we're all black first and that we all come from the same motherfucking place. If you're a black person who's not projecting your internalized self-hate on every other black person you see around. If you love being black and you love other black people regardless of where they come from, get up in these comments. We need to drown out the haters, the bitter bitches, the angry lurkers, the jealous hoes. They have way too much reach on this platform. So let's shut their asses the fuck up. Come on, cousins. Let's have some fun in these comments.
PSA, I do not want to start a diaspora war, but I do want to talk about them in a sensible way. If I can just fix this, right? Also, if I mention the part of the diaspora that you're in, don't get sensitive, especially because you don't know what I'm going to say next and you don't know where the story's going. But basically, I saw an American girl on here say that she, with her exposure to Black Scots, she's really, really aware of how isolated Americans are from global Black diaspora stories, and that she's realised that there's kind of like a struggle for her to see herself and how she fits into the global Black story, and she's just realising how much this has not happened like for her internally personally. She spoke about isolation, which I think is the best thing to speak about, because not only is America the country becoming more isolationist, but America is also a country that's very, very individualistic. And in my opinion, isolation is the next step in that. After individualism is isolation, where they actually get you to actively try to isolate yourself. And in that, we have capitalism too. So you're going to spend more money to get an Uber alone, for example. We would spend a lot of money to make sure that we are in a hotel where we can be on our own. It's the same with friends when we go to visit their cities, so that we're not in their space and they're not in ours, because we're making the assumption that they don't want to be around us, and more time we don't want to be around them for too long either. But when I saw this video, I did think to myself, no, that's actually quite obvious that you guys are. And the reason for that is because whenever there are these like diaspora wars that happen, I always see Black Americans say that they feel like they are uniquely being targeted by the global Black community when it comes to like xenophobic violence. Every time I see it, I always think this ridiculous like main character American syndrome, but I'm actually going to try to be as empathetic as I can with that, what that girl was saying, specifically about isolation and the inability to see oneself as part of the global Black diaspora. Basically what she's saying is that I don't know what's even happening in global Black politics. I bring it up not even to speak about Americans, I actually bring it up to speak about last year. And I don't know if you guys will remember when that diaspora was taking place for it's taking us like 3 or 4 months between Nigerians and South Africans. Now, I'm a Jamaican and I'm a British Jamaican, so watching it play out, there's only so much I can actually be involved, but you know, diaspora wars are very similar no matter who the people who are participating in it are. So even when I saw the diaspora war that went on for a good month between the Black French people and the Black Brits over Fête de la Musique, by the way, the Black French people were right. I just want to say that, they're right. When I watched that play out, I'm realising like you get to see the similarities in all the frameworks. It's just, the only people who think that they're uniquely experiencing it are the Americans. But that 4-month-long diaspora war between the South Africans and the Nigerians over the beauty pageant that took place in South Africa, God, deeply uncomfortable, and it just felt like it was endless. But more importantly, it's about how I watched it spill out into other spaces, right? So I was in an Uber going from, actually, you don't even need to know that. I was in an Uber with a friend, British Zimbabwean, British Nigerian, and our driver was Nigerian. Like I said, I'm Jamaican. So we've got a whole mix of the diaspora in there. I can't remember what we were discussing. Oh, we were discussing like the sovereignty of certain cultures over other cultures. And we were speaking to like the Nigerian uncle who was driving us. Anyways, at a certain point he said to us, like, if you guys actually feel that way, then what do you think of the xenophobia that's happening in South Africa towards Nigerians? One of my friends, the Zimbabwean, she said to him, you know, I just think that this is what white people want. They want us to fight. We all need to really be working on getting along, blah, blah, blah. My personal philosophy in this is that when these diaspora wars come up, like not collectively, I'm not going to throw myself in the middle of the battle, but if somebody says something xenophobic, it's not good enough to say that we should just all get along. Like, that's not going to address what the actual problem is. So I said to her, like, and I asked him to explain what he meant. Because from my perspective, he already had his perspective. He said it was xenophobic, and it's from South Africans towards Nigerians, and this is how he perceives this entire situation. So for me, I felt like it was quite a loaded question, like he's trying to catch us out in some way, and I'm very wary of that. Anyways, so that happens. And I asked him, like, what does he mean? He goes, you know, have you seen the stuff about the beauty pageant? We said that we have. And he goes, you know, they're being very xenophobic towards us. They don't like us because we're Nigerians. And if we really are all Africans, then why don't they love us? Why don't they respect us? So I asked Uncle, and I said, when can I ask you a question? But you have to answer it honestly. He said he would. And I asked him, who do you think has the best culture in Africa? Remember, I'm not an African woman, so I'm saying this. I feel like I get to ask it more freely because I'm not Nigerian or Zimbabwean like my friends. I asked him, what's the best culture in Africa? To which he replied to me that it was Nigeria. He's like, can I be honest with you guys? And I said, yeah, sure, be honest, that's what I want. And he's like, it's Nigeria, guys. It's Nigeria. We have the best culture. We have better culture than everybody. What I explained to him from that point on is that when you believe something like that, like when you truly believe it, which I believe that he really did believe, and I believe that many Nigerians believe, when you believe that, you can't expect to have friends. You can't expect to have allies. Who would be your friend if you believed off the bat, if they know that you believe off the bat that you think that you're better than them? Mind you, when you do believe these things, it's not just in your words, it's always in your actions. How you treat other people, it will shift because you genuinely believe that you are better than them. And so they will pick up on that and they won't want to be around you. Which is what I said to him. I said, who on earth would want to be around, respect or love or embrace anybody who believes off the bat that their culture is superior to the person that they're speaking to? He paused for quite a long time as well. He paused and he's like, you know, you're right. I know I'm right. Who the hell would want to be around you? Mind you guys, I'm saying this as a Jamaican, okay? Every day I have to fight the urge to tell everybody I'm better than them. No, but seriously, you have to unpick that in your brain because I was also...
These diaspora conversations and lives I've been scrolling and seeing, shit is getting interesting. And as I was listening to one that I actually got into her live yesterday because I was trying to answer it, but she muted my mic. I guess she didn't want to hear what I had to say. However, I had there's something I think people need to understand just how powerful epigenetics is. So for those who don't know what epigenetics is, you know how it is, how stress and trauma changes your DNA, right? So with stress and trauma changing your DNA, I got to thinking, I was like, man, imagine this situation where your child or whoever in your family was snatched. You weren't able to, you didn't know what the fuck happened. You didn't know, and I'm pretty sure you never mourned them because you believed that they were alive, so you had this trauma. So I was like, you know what? Let me ask, because I feel like that is something that they have going on while they're like the jealous cousin or something. This shit is crazy. And so I put my question into chat. I was like, girl, no, play it. But I was like, more so like, is there any ancestral epigenetic memory encoded in Africans, specifically those from Nigeria? Because, it was 60 to 75% ethnically of those that were enslaved came from the Igbo tribe. Now, we acknowledge there was black people over here already, because like my paternal side, they were never enslaved. So, I definitely know that. But for those that did have to suffer through that transatlantic, which was the first Jesse we say in our family, you came from that part. Imagine that huge group of people that was snatched, that was never truly mourned correctly, right? So it says, Black epigenetics becomes different for us. It's just not trauma. It's interrupted ritual sequences, disordered soul contracts, stolen timelines, grief launched in the wombs of women who never bled again after their child was taken. The epigenetic trauma of being a martyr without a grave. Imagine a village whose children were stolen by slavers. The mother carried rage and mourning until every breath. The fathers carry shame that they could not protect. The siblings carry confusion and guilt. The village slowly loses spiritual coherence because grief was never named. That stress alters their sleep, immune system, fertility, nervous system, and those altered expressions pass down. So yes, generations later, their descendants might feel irrational rage when they see Black Americans centered in global discourse, mock us as not really African as a defense mechanism, feel pulled to us, but also repelled because our existence is their unspeakable memory walking. And it's not hate, it's not even jealousy. It's unresolved ancestral mourning stored in their blood. That's why it feels strange and unspoken, because it's not the mind that remembers, it's the body. And the body is a time machine. The body remembers what the mouth cannot say. That's why a Nigerian auntie can't explain why she looks at you funny. Like, I've had them say, "You sure you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." You like, my mom is like my but we come from, my maternal side was enslaved. Or why a Ghanaian man might fetishize you then dismiss your struggle. Or why some Pan-African movements feel like control, not reconnection. They are operating from a disordered ancestral field where the stolen equals sacred, the remaining equal forgotten, and the grief unbearable. So the descendants of those who stayed sometimes try to rewrite the story because they cannot spiritually survive the truth. We mourned you, and now you are alive, and the whole world sees you as light, as the light, while we are still in the shadow. That's not an insult. That's a deep soul level cry. So is it epigenetics? Yes. Is trauma stored in the body inherited? Yes. Is grief that reshapes genes, hormones, survival instincts? Yes. Is cellular memory responding to the vibration of the unspeakable? But it's also spiritual DNA, a soul code warped by betrayal and absence, energetic inheritance, a curse passed not because of malice, but because no one buried the dead. Grief math. When the people who stayed couldn't bury their children, and so their descendants buried their memory. But really the conversation needs to be had that as Black Americans, we need to just step out that diaspora. But really the conversation needs to be had that as Black Americans, we need to just step out that diaspora situation conversation. I don't know. My grandma used to say, if you go to a neighborhood, you get bit by a dog. You go back, you get bit by a dog again. That's your fucking fault. They done told her. They don't understand. You see essence? We are not of the same culture. Not anymore. We got to step. Literally, as Black Americans, how we disconnected, which has caused everything to go crazy, because some of these plans they had didn't get to be enacted because we didn't move, right? We need to disconnect from everything. I'm telling you, it's going to be the women that's going to lead this. And those women are your siblings born in between 78 and 85. But I also have to understand that in our healing, in our going in, we're going to have to be like Moses. We're going to have to be like Yahshua. We're going to have to go in the desert. And in that, everybody ain't going to come. But I want you guys to listen to what I just said, to understand and let them have their little time and their grace, because we understand that that's that mother that lost that child that's still mourning, and that's that shit that they did to us. Just like
The Diaspora wars are exhausting. They are old, they are tired, and to be completely honest, they are not even the real fight. When I see black flags, whether African American, Caribbean, Afro-Latins, or anyone else across the diaspora going at each other about who has it worse, who contributed what, who built what, who suffered more, who is standard, who is free, I see sickness. I don't mean sickness in a light way, I mean it's like a sickness, because every time I scroll through these arguments online, it reminds me of someone focused on a cough when what they actually have is cancer. You can cough all day, argue all night, but until you address the cancer, you are dying slowly while thinking you are winning a fight. The cough in this analogy is the diaspora wars, the petty arguments, the insults, the akata, slurs, the tidal comments. They were not battles over history and suffering. They feel like victories when you get your jab in. But what happens next? The fever is still there. The body aches are still there. The deeper sickness hasn't gone anywhere. And what is that sickness? White supremacy, racism, colonialism. The system that sets up all these divisions in the first place, that is the cancer we keep ignoring while we argue over the cough. Think about it. The slave trade, colonization, Jim Crow, apathy, police brutality, immigration bans, economic exploitation, none of this was designed by black people. It was designed by a system that strives on division, strives on confusion, strives on us wasting time fighting each other instead of focusing on the power structure that cages us all in different ways. Let's talk about symptoms again. The diaspora wars look like African Americans calling Africans Tida, or immigrants stealing resources. It looks like Africans dismissing African Americans as lazy akatas. It looks like Caribbeans saying they kept their culture intact while black Americans lost theirs. It looks like Africans claiming they sold others in slavery, therefore they should bear shame forever. Every single one of these arguments is a code, a cough, loud, distracting, irritating, but not the real disease. When you peel back the cough, what is the fever? It's racism teaching us to hate ourselves. It's anti-blackness planted in every society, making us doubt each other's words. It's media framing one part of the diaspora as dangerous, another as poor, another as criminals, another as backward. It's propaganda teaching Africans to look down on African Americans and African Americans to look down on Africans, and both to ignore Caribbeans or Afro-Latins voices. That is the fever. That is the body ache. That is the cancer spreading while we fight about nothing. White supremacy wants us divided. It wants the diaspora wars to continue, because when we are arguing about accent, about culture, about food, about history, we are not organizing, we are uniting. We are not building, we are not fighting the system. Let me break this down even further. Diaspora wars are rooted in insecurity. That insecurity is manufactured. Colonialism stripped Africans of resources, identity, and dignity. Slavery stripped African Americans of lineage, heritage, and history. Caribbeans were brutalized in plantations and denied sovereignty for centuries. Afro-Latins people were erased by Mexican, by whitening campaigns, by denial of African roots. So what do? Instead of veiling together, we project our pain onto each other. We fight for scraps of identity, for scraps of recognition. We weaponize trauma against our own cousins. That is not strength, that is not power, that is cancer spreading. And here's the truth people don't want to face. You cannot one-up trauma. You cannot qualify pain. Who had it worse? Who suffered more? That is not liberation talk. That is Oppression Olympics. And the only winners of Oppression Olympics are the oppressors. Let's go back to the doctor analogy. Imagine being at the hospital with cancer. Your body is breaking down, but instead of accepting treatment, you argue with the nurse about whether your cough is worse than the person in the waiting room's cough. You argue about the bigger fever. Meanwhile, the cancer spreads. That is us. Diaspora arguing about slavery, colonization, immigration, culture thefts, when the bigger picture that we are all under the boot of white supremacy. White supremacy doesn't care if you are African American or Nigeria, you are Jamaica or Haitian, if you are Afro-Brazilian or Afro-British. The court pulling the trigger doesn't ask your lineage. The system denying your loan doesn't care if your great-great-grandfather was enslaved in America or colonized in Ghana. The school pipeline, the mass incarceration system, the economic exclusion, it swallows us whole no matter what part of the diaspora we come from. So why are we coughing at each other instead of fighting the cancer? The hard truth is, diaspora wars serve white supremacy. They are engineered distractions. The internet amplifies the most hateful voices because conflict sells. Bitter people with trauma turn their anger outward instead of inward. They become the fuel. They become the symptoms spreaders. They keep us coughing while the cancer grows. But here's the beauty. Just like sickness, unity can be medicine. Love is medicine. Understanding is medicine. Pan-Africanism is medicine. When Africans, African Americans, Caribbeans, Afro-Latins, and black people across Europe, Canada, Asia, all say we are black first, we are family first, we begin to treat the cancer. We begin to build an immune system strong enough to fight white supremacy. That doesn't mean ignoring difference. We all have different histories, different struggles, but instead of weaponizing those differences, we honor them. African Americans built culture under unimaginable pressure and gave them world music, art, and resilience that inspires billions. Africans resisted colonialism and still fight neo-colonial exploitation while carrying ancient tradition forward. Caribbeans created revolutions from Haitian independence to Marcus Garvey's vision. Afro-Latin people preserved African spirituality and rhythm in the face of erasure. Every part of the diaspora has contributed something irreplaceable to the story of blackness. That is not division, that is power. The cancer doesn't stand a chance if we stop coughing at each other and start healing together. So next time you see a diaspora war online, ask yourself, am I feeding the cough or am I addressing the cancer? Am I projecting my pain outward or am I recognizing my cousin in the face of another black person? Am I playing oppressor Olympics or am I building solidarity? Because at the end of the day, diaspora wars are distractions. White supremacy is the disease and the cure is unity.
And if you have watched up to this extent, thank you so much for all the love and support. Don't forget to please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. Alright, lovely. See you when I upload the next video.